Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday. It's the start of another week, the start of a Champions League week. Arsenal in action tomorrow against Sporting in Portugal. They'll be flying out a little bit later on today. Mikel Arteta is going to do a press conference over in Lisbon a little bit later on today, about 7 p.m. UK time. Well, that's when it's scheduled. And having been to many of these press conferences away from home in Europe, it very rarely starts at the time it's scheduled. But at the moment, it is scheduled to start at 7 p.m. UK time. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. As you can see, I'm at my home. I'm not going to Lisbon for this one. Couldn't make it over there for this one. So I will be covering the game as usual from home tomorrow, going around my dad's house to watch it. Looking forward to that, seeing if Arsenal can build on what was a really good win, of course, at the weekend. Now, this is a little bit later on today than I usually record. I've been waiting because Arsenal do have an open training session at London Colney today. Again, I'm not going there for that one. I've got loads of stuff on trying to sell this house at the moment, and I just can't get the time to get to London Colney for the training session today. But I've been waiting to record to see what happened at that open training session. Sky Sports News are going to be down there, obviously, with their cameras. We're going to see if anyone's not involved in training. But again, having been to so many of these in the past, it clearly has been delayed because we're getting no news from it yet. So, and I've got to record now, or I'm not going to be able to record today. So I'll keep flicking through and scrolling on my social media during this video, just in case reports do come through from London Colney in terms of who is potentially training. We shall wait and see. But like I said, Mikel's going to be speaking a little bit later on over in Lisbon at the press conference. So if there is any sort of updated team news, I'm sure we'll get the latest from him. And Arsenal do tend to say who's travelled as well for these European games. So we'll find out very, very soon. So going to talk about that game. I think it's going to be really interesting in terms of who Mikel picks for this game. Will he make changes? He made big changes at the weekend, of course, not the starting 11 we were expecting. Will he make changes to that team, or will he stick with the team that performed so well, to be honest, against, it was Nottingham Forest at the weekend. So we shall see. We'll talk about that. Got lots of comments and questions from you guys as well on various topics. We'll talk about the weekend as a whole in the Premier League. Certainly a very dramatic weekend in the Premier League. Good one again for Liverpool. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But looking ahead to tomorrow's game, I think the key thing, obviously, there was no Declan Rice. He didn't play. Wasn't fit enough to start the game at the weekend, was on the bench. Mikel didn't need to use him, which was good considering he's got this injury issue that he's trying to sort of come back from at the moment. Will Sporting be a little bit too soon? I would suggest it would be. And also, I think the good thing is the form of Jorginho in that first 45 minutes before he got replaced was excellent. The form of Thomas Partey, we know, is excellent as well. So Arteta has options and he doesn't need to rush Declan Rice back into the side at all, which is a good thing. I think Kai Havertz comes into the side. I mean, that was the one real big surprise for me at the weekend, was that Gabriel Jesus started up front and Kai Havertz didn't. I think Havertz comes back into the side. I'd be very, very surprised if he's not in the team. It'll be interesting in terms of Gabriel Martinelli as well. See, Leandro Trossard preferred on the left-hand side. I thought Trossard played well. I thought it was his best performance we've seen from him in a while. We know he's been struggling for form and confidence and goals. He didn't get himself on the score sheet on Saturday, but especially in that first half, I thought there were some good signs from Leandro Trossard. I liked what Arsenal were doing down that left-hand side. Most of the play obviously came down the right with Saka and Odegaard and Timber combining so well. But when the play did go down the left, it was still good. There was a good understanding there with Trossard and Calafiori as well. But again, I feel he's probably going to make some changes for this one. I don't think it'll be wholesale changes, but I definitely think Havertz comes back in, and it wouldn't surprise me if Martinelli comes back into the side. I imagine that Martinelli being left out at the weekend was mainly because of the long flight home he'd had from Brazil. And so that's why Mikel went with Trossard on the left-hand side. So, yeah, interesting in terms of changes. Let me know what you guys think in terms of what your starting 11s will be. I'll record my preview show in the morning. As always, I'll pull together some of what you've been saying in terms of the 11s you would like to see. So get down into the comments. Give me the starting 11, the changes that you would make or think that Mikel should make for this game. If any, you might want to stick with the starting 11 that performed so well in that first half against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. Whatever your thoughts on it, do let me know in the comments. I'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. I think there'll be a few changes, not many, but definitely Havertz, potentially Martinelli, and could well see Thomas Partey come in from the start rather than Jorginho, but we'll wait and see on that as well. One player who I was really impressed with at the weekend, Calafiori, it's great to see him back. It's so important. I think that he helped so much in terms of the balance Arsenal had down that left-hand side. As I said, with Trossard was good, but it just also allowed Timber to come out to the right-hand side to cover for Ben White. And, I thought Timber had a really good, strong performance. And it was by far and away the most balanced looking Arsenal side we've seen all season, the most balanced Arsenal performance we've seen all season. Having Calafiori back fit was just obviously absolutely integral to that. He was speaking after the game, actually, had some interesting things to say on Nwaneri and on Martin Odegaard as well. Just on Nwaneri, he said, look, I'm really happy for him. He's really deserved it. For me, he's a pure talent. For sure, you will see more of him on the pitch. Senior players are helping him settle, but the younger players, don't even need it because they feel part of us from the first day. I felt the same when I came here, and this is our secret. He was asked if he's ever played with a 17-year-old like Nwaneri before. Calafiori said, no, I don't think so. I've never seen it. He can be really good. And obviously, I mean, we know he can be really good. He's shown that he can be really good. We were speaking about it yesterday's show in terms of what Arteta had to say immediately after the game against Forest, and why he was saying that it's about building it brick by brick and then putting on another layer and then doing brick by brick and not doing 5 layers in a row all at the same time. Because if he does that, it won't work. And that's what Arteta was saying. It was interesting comments. Lots of reaction to that. Lots of different opinion. I think the one thing we can all agree on when it comes to the development of Ethan Nwaneri and how Mikel Arteta is putting that development into place. The one thing we can agree on is that we're never going to agree. There's always going to be difference of opinion. It's just the one certainty in the whole thing is that the fan base will be split on how Arteta is handling the development of Ethan Nwaneri. My sort of take on it, as I said yesterday, was I feel he could have played more minutes. I feel he could have started more games, but I can absolutely understand why Arteta is taking things pretty sensibly with him. And this is what some of your reactions are. So Norwegian Rich at the top there says, Arteta's excuse doesn't hold any water for me. Nwaneri should have had more minutes that he's been given. You can see it in his demeanour when he comes on. Fabregas and Rooney come to mind. Frederick says, what's interesting about Ethan's case is that we as fans are always right and always know better than the coach. It's like tossing a coin. If it's not heads, it's a tail. The fact that he is shining when it comes on, then he could have done it the same if he'd have played earlier. We had that illusion with Trossard when we were backing him to start. When he started, he struggled and we condemned him. Sports Fan TV says, I completely understand Mikel wants to protect Ethan. The eye test is telling me he belongs and physically capable. Mikel needs to unleash the beast. And then Sealord says, on Nwaneri's minutes this season, when you try and defend why Arteta might be being cautious with him, people always point to Yamal, but they never mentioned 2 other Barca players, Gavi and Pedri. From what I understand, both played a lot of youngsters and have had injury issues ever since. Need to be careful and do what's best for the long term of the player. And it's just everyone can have an opinion, and everyone will have an opinion on this. We see it. Ultimately, as I said yesterday, Arteta is the guy who is in charge of this kid's development. He's the one who's, Nwaneri's putting the trust in to manage his career properly. Nwaneri's family, his agent, are putting the trust in to manage his career sensibly. And Arteta ultimately is a guy who has to do it, and he has to put the plans in place. And we can all disagree with it. We can be frustrated at times with it that he hasn't played more minutes, but the proof's going to be in the pudding in 2 or 3 years' time, isn't it? Where Nwaneri's career is in 2 or 3 years' time. If it's gone the right way, then we'll look back and say Arteta handled it perfectly. Just like now we can look back on how Pep handled Phil Foden when he was coming through, when all of England was crying for Phil Foden to be playing more. Man City fans were all demanding he played more. England fans were demanding he played more because we wanted to see him play and wanted to get in the national team. But now we look at it a few years down the line, also applaud Pep and say, oh, you handled that perfectly. You didn't put too much pressure on him. You protected his body as it was still growing, and it worked out very, very well. So ultimately, as I said, proof's going to be in the pudding. If it went 3 years' time when Nwaneri's a regular, has avoided any sort of injury during this growing pain period, and he is growing, his body is still growing. He is not a fully grown man yet. And if he's avoided injury and he's looking really, really strong when he hits to 20, 21 years old, then we can sit back and applaud Arteta and say he's done things correctly and in a sensible way. As I said, the one thing we can all agree on is that we're never going to agree. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he can just continue to perform well and continue to make an impact when he does get his minutes on the pitch. Just going back to Calafiori, he was also talking about Martin Odegaard after the game at the weekend, and he said, you can feel it when he's missing. He gives us a lot of energy and quality. I can't tell you one thing, but you can feel it whether he's off, when he is on or off the pitch. When he's missing, we feel it. Him and Bukayo, what they did was unbelievable the weekend. It's good to have them back. I can just imagine, like Calafiori there, listening to what he was saying, how much stronger they feel as a group, knowing that Martin Odegaard's there. It's the same as a fan base, isn't it? When you look at the team sheet and you see Martin Odegaard's on the team sheet, you just immediately think, oh, we've got much more of a chance today. We're going to be much, much better. It was turning up at that ground at the weekend, seeing him lead the team out, being on the pitch, going to the centre circle with a referee for a half time to do the coin toss. You just immediately feel more comfortable that you're going to see a good, strong Arsenal performance because Martin Odegaard is there. And it'll be the same for the players as well. They'll look around. They'll be standing in a tunnel waiting to go out, and they'll look to the front of the line, and there's Martin Odegaard waiting to lead them out. They'll be thinking, you know what, we're going to be on it today. We're going to have more chance of winning this game. It just must raise everyone's level just a little bit. And you don't want to put too much pressure on one player. But as I was saying to my mate this morning, doing the school run, his kid goes to the same school as my kid, and we're Arsenal fans. We was talking about it. I said the one thing you obviously when a top quality player is playing for the team, you notice it. But the mark of a real top quality player is when the team is playing without him. And that's when you realise just how good he is because he's not there. It's what we're seeing with Man City at the moment with Rodri, isn't it? We know how good Rodri is, but it's not till he's actually not in that Man City team that you actually realise just how good he is because of how much of a different side City are when he's not playing. It's exactly the same with Martin Odegaard. When he's not in the team, this Arsenal team, you realise just how good he is because they're just nowhere near as good without him. And, you know, the very best players are like that because as good a team you can be without when he's you're just always going to feel his absence. And yeah, it's great to have him back. Fingers crossed now can wrap him in cotton wool and he stays injury free for the next few months because Arsenal need to get on a run and they need to get on a run quickly because when you look at the league table, there is Liverpool. Oh, honestly, Southampton did their very best, didn't they, to gift wrap 3 points to Liverpool yesterday. I've just never seen three worse goals to concede. I think. I mean, what they were doing for the first one, brilliant finish from Szoboszlai, obviously, but what on earth are you doing there? The second one, Alex McCarthy, I have no idea what he's doing. You know, Southampton have just worked really hard, overturned an early deficit to go 2-1 ahead, and then just a long ball down the right-hand side from Gravenberch. Where is McCarthy going? Why are you coming out for that? You're never getting anywhere near it. And then you're just leaving Salah for an open goal, and then the handball to give away the penalty at the end. It's like, oh, talk about kicking yourself in the teeth and just gifting your opponents 3 points. It's hard enough to play Liverpool at the best of times, let alone when you concede 3 goals like that. And I mean, I was kind of looking at it and thinking the sign of a good team, obviously, is that cliche, isn't it? Is when you win when you play poorly. And Liverpool didn't play great yesterday, but they won. So on one hand, you look at that and say, well, it's a sign of a good team because they've got 3 points while playing poorly. But then on the other hand, you look at it and think, they're still not convincing me. And they had an awful lot of luck to win that game. And history suggests that at some point that luck is going to run out. So it's just tough to really assess it. I mean, you look at them there. I mean, they're sitting so pretty, 8 points clear at the top of the table. You look at the Premier League title odds there from Opta now, 69.5% chance that Liverpool go on, according to Opta, and win the Premier League this season. Man City down to 23.3, Arsenal only 6.5. So everything is heavily weighted in Liverpool's favour. We're nearly a third of the way through the season now, or we are a third of the way through the season now, and they are 8 points clear. The table does not lie. It's going to be tough to catch them. But I still look at Liverpool at the moment and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not convinced there's not a couple of back-to-back defeats in there. They were very, very close to losing yesterday at Southampton. And that would have been a bonus for Arsenal and for anyone else. You know, no one expected at the start of the weekend that Liverpool were going to drop any points at Southampton. So had it happened, it would have been a bonus. But it is frustrating because they were so close and they really should have dropped points. But Southampton just sort of gave their advantage away. This weekend's obviously going to be really crucial. It's Man City versus Liverpool at Anfield. Arsenal just need to make sure they get the job done at West Ham. They've got to go there and win and just wait and see what happens. I mean, City look a mess at the moment. You watch that Tottenham side. I mean, Tottenham always play well against City. We know that. They always cause them problems. But just the ease in which they played through them. And it's not just Tottenham. I mean, obviously, conceded 4 goals at Sporting. I mean, Sporting are a very good side. Arsenal are going to find out tomorrow. But they conceded 4 goals against Sporting in one half. Was it one half? Was it one or half time? 3 goals in one half. They got battered by Spurs. They're on a 5-game losing run in all competitions. They've got to go to Anfield at the weekend now. And if City play like they did against Spurs, against Liverpool, then Liverpool will run through them at Anfield because they're so easy to get through. But you do look at City and think this is almost last chance saloon for them because if they go and lose against Liverpool at the weekend, they're going to be so far behind. And it's like that sort of wounded animal theory, isn't it? Can they bounce back at Anfield and inflict a really damaging defeat on Liverpool? And if they do, will that knock Liverpool's confidence? So it's a really big weekend in the Premier League. The key thing for Arsenal is just to win at West Ham. Make sure you have those 3 points in the bag, and then you can sort of watch what happens at Anfield after that. So it's a really, really big one for them. But look at the league table right now, and obviously Liverpool. I mean, you've got to say Chelsea are in contention as well. I mean, you go down to Brighton, the way Brighton are playing. I mean, even Spurs. We know Spurs can beat anyone on their day. They proved that at a weekend. I mean, the thing with Spurs is they're so inconsistent. They'll lose at home to Ipswich, then they'll beat Manchester City. They'll lose at Crystal Palace, and they'll beat United comfortably at Old Trafford. They're so hit and miss, Spurs, under Postecoglou, the way they play. So I'm not sure they've got the consistency that's going to be needed to really be in the title race. But you look at Chelsea, the firepower that they've got. Are they in the race? I mean, if Arsenal are, then Chelsea have to be considered that they are at the moment. Although I look at their defence and I look at their goalkeeper and wonder if that's good enough to maintain it over the course of a season. But Liverpool in a great position, absolutely in a great position. It's going to be tough to chase them down, but I do feel like Arsenal are in a very good position to go on a good winning run right now. Right, a couple of questions now before we wrap this one up for today. Vet Para's got in touch and said, the interesting thing about Jorginho's performance is that I started thinking of him as someone who needs to play with Rice to make up for his lack of athleticism. Clearly, having two fullbacks that are defensively strong might be good enough, it seems, but I hope we see him more. Also, I'm quite surprised at how high up Marino is always playing. I thought of him as more defensive-minded when he joined, but he's full-on box-to-box, arguably makes Jorginho's performance even more impressive. Yeah, I thought it was very noticeable with Marino. I mean, I wasn't overly surprised about it. When Arteta was talking about him after he signed him when he was injured, and he was talking about, I think he was talking about the sort of lack of goal threats Arsenal have. He kept mentioning Marino. I think he thinks Marino can score plenty of goals this season from that position. And when you watched him at the weekend, it was very noticeable. Every time a cross was coming in, Marino was making sure he was getting himself into a heading position at the back post. Ball didn't obviously get to him too much, but I think he is going to be a threat there and he is going to score plenty of goals. And I look at him, I think he's definitely being told you need to get yourself into the box and be an extra body in the box, especially when the ball is out wide, because aerially we know he is good. He was very close to scoring at the weekend. That would have been ruled out for offside anyway after when in the incident that led to Timber scoring the rebound for it. But I do think, yeah, he is very much a box-to-box player. He's not defensive minded. Marino, that's definitely not why he's been signed. Agree, Jorginho playing him alongside Rice might be a good thing to make up for the lack of athleticism that Jorginho now has. But one thing I am for sure is Jorginho does need to play more minutes this season. Just going on to AFC, Matt now says, hope you're having a lovely Sunday. I did have a good Sunday. Thank you very much. We chased my kids around Legoland all Sunday during Storm Bert, but we managed to avoid the worst of the weather and they did have fun. So that was the main thing. He said, wanted to ask you if you saw that Hudson-Odoi challenge on Saliba in the second half on Saturday. Could have been a leg breaker for Saliba. For what it looked like he was fine afterwards, but do you have any updates? Again, I was waiting for the open training session today to see if Saliba was there, but obviously still no news coming from that training session at the moment. So it's obviously been a little bit late starting, but I don't think there was any issue with Saliba. He seemed okay. It was a bad one. It's a tough one though. It wasn't like he launched himself into a challenge. It was a shot, wasn't it, from Hudson-Odoi? And it was kind of the follow through. It looked nasty, especially in slow motion replays, but I don't think there was any malice there. I think he was just shooting, and it was one of those incidents where the follow through caught Saliba. So I don't really put too much blame on Hudson-Odoi from it, but it could have been worse, no doubt about it. It was a nasty one, but fingers crossed that Saliba has escaped any sort of injury for that. But as I said, by the time you're watching this video or listening to this on podcast, probably the latest news from open training will have happened and you'll be able to see if he was fit or not. But I am expecting him to be fit and do certainly hope that he will be involved at on tomorrow night in the Champions League. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, like I said, get involved in tomorrow's preview show. Give me your starting lineups for the game in the comments below. I'll pull something together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a great Monday. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.